Welcome to Excel Beyond Boundaries, episode 37, with Priscilla Gutierrez, who is a certified trauma informed life coach, or keynote speaker, known as the Cycle Breaker Coach on social media. She is the founder of the Cycle Breakers Club, where she empowers cycle breakers to transform their mindset, build mindful habits, and set soul aligned goals through individual and group coaching. So, thank you for joining us today. I'm excited to hear your story.
Thank you, Jonathan, for having me. I'm excited to be
Absolutely,
here.
absolutely. So, taking it way back, where did it all begin for you?
I would say it began before I began. I would say that generationally, my roots going back to Latin America, Ecuador, and Nicaragua, that really influenced my parents' parenting of my brother and I, which definitely influenced our trajectory. So I would say it started with my ancestors, my elders.
That's a great answer. It is interesting how, and I know we're going to touch on all this shortly, epigenetics and all of that
Hmm.
can be passed down, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, how did you first get into acknowledging that you had things subconscious that were affecting you, and what was the first step you took towards that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say college. So around maybe 18, that's when I started to realize, or rather, my actions were a mirror to me that I wasn't really okay. And so I would say the biggest decision to kind of explore what was going on was going to a wilderness program. So when I'm trying to decide, I think I was already 19, barely 19 when I decided and agreed rather to go to a wilderness program in Utah. And for those who may not know what that is, it's, um, it's not really a fun time. It's not what I thought it was. I thought it was going to be camping. Like you go there and you sit around a fire and you talk about your issues, but it requires hiking every day, latrines. You eat the same dehydrated beans and rice. No privacy. It's definitely more challenging mentally and emotionally than it is physically. So, and also if you want to get kind of examples, if you go on Netflix, they have a documentary called Health Camp, and then I think they release a few similar documentaries on the troubled teen industry. I'll
Interesting.
put that out there. If you're really curious, you can learn more about it.
I am curious. So basically, it was like an immersive experience where they stripped away distractions, and
Hmm.
was it more so to get you to focus inward?
Yes, exactly. So majority of the folks there had some type of relationship with substances, whether it was like a full-on maybe addiction or dependency. And so that's part of the reason where when you're out in the wilderness, you can't access alcohol, for example. You can't access other drugs of choice. And so in some ways, I found it helpful to not have all those external distractions. But on the other hand, it was a little extreme and questionable. And honestly, I didn't realize how questionable it was until more recently because I didn't really talk about it. And so, although I had this really big step, it unfortunately wasn't consistent where I definitely ebbed and flowed with my journey. So I would say actually after that experience, I got a little bit worse with my self destructive tendencies. So college was a very unique experience for me. The most challenging part was not the academics, it wasn't anything other than really my own stuff, my own inner work, my
Yes.
family. Yeah. And so college was kind of that it was a whole immersive experience in itself where I had to really sit with myself and you can only run away from yourself so much.
That makes sense. And not to interrupt, but I just want to understand. So, the experience that you did, tell me if I'm wrong. It kind of scratched the surface and revealed, digging deep enough to reveal and make you conscious of those things, but not deep enough to break through. So, it caused more challenges in college. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
almost like I had a gaping wound, trigger warning graphic, like a gaping wound under a bandage, and I didn't realize how bad the wound was. And so what they did was they definitely pulled it right off. It wasn't, smooth. And they allowed me to see, okay, there's work that needs to be done, but they didn't necessarily go fully in depth. It was kind of like a initial step.
Oh,
So yeah, so they actually recommend aftercare. And so my aftercare program after 6 weeks of living in the Utah desert was an intensive outpatient program for alcohol. And I didn't complete it. I That's the only rehab I did not complete. I wasn't ready. So I stayed there for about 2 weeks, and that definitely I had to confront more things. So basically, I'll give myself credit that I definitely was coachable and I was open minded because it was my parents that were co signing it. And I really trust my parents. So I know
good.
that they love me the most. And so if they're saying, like, Priscilla, you're kind of wilding, like you might need to reflect, then I knew they were right. And they were right. And so,
That's
yeah,
good that you were
that,
open to growth.
yeah, and I still am.
Good, good. Wow. No, I have to say it is very courageous to, face all of that head on because so many people, as you know better than me, from having them as your clients, but so many people, I should say everyone, has things that they have to deal with, and the majority tend to just kind of brush it under the carpet and kind of run away. So I respect that for sure.
Thank you. And to be honest, I was one of those people as well. So I haven't always been consistently open-minded and coachable. It followed an intervention of some sort for me to be like, okay, I will. But if I was able to, I would run away. And I was. I ran away through the drinking, through the eating disorders, through law school. So there's a lot of different ways you can avoid doing the work.
I understand. I'm curious, what do you think the reason, like the fundamental reason was?
Mhm.
What would you say?
It was trauma for me. So
Okay.
that was definitely the gateway drug, if you will, to the alcohol. It was the source of everything, really. I've been through some interesting, and interesting probably isn't the adjective, but intense situations that I don't really think about them. I think about the childhood stuff or other traumas that they stick with you. They can shatter your belief of the world, of people, and things like that. And so ultimately, it was unresolved trauma that fueled a lot of self destruction.
I see. That's
Hmm.
no, you definitely have a powerful story for sure.
Thank you.
So then after you went through college and you realized, and then what was the next step from there?
The next step after that was law school. I did take a gap year, and during that gap year, I went to another rehab. This is not me laughing because it's funny, it's just a release because it's just looking back on it, I'm like, whoa, that was a lot. Because when you are dealing with an eating disorder, for anyone listening, you know how horrible it is. Like, I would never wish that on anyone. It did not compare to my relationship with alcohol because with that, I was able, when I was finally ready to say I'm done, I never looked back. So I haven't drank since November 2nd, 2011. It's been a long time. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But with eating disorders, every day you have to eat multiple times. You can't run from food. And so that, I don't even know what amount to assign to that experience. I'm definitely in recovery, but it was the hardest thing ever to manage, to ever get to a point of, whoa, like, okay, I don't have that same compulsion and secrecy and things like that. And so that's why I spent that gap year doing some work on that. And then about 6 months after I finished that program, I was already in California starting law school. And so I truly did not give myself space and time to heal and to be okay. I just went from one thing to another. And one thing I haven't mentioned, apart from the drinking and stuff like that, in college, I experienced a couple of traumas, but the really profound one was my brother's traumatic brain injury. And so that in itself Like that was, it
Sorry to
will never
hear
be
that.
easy. Yeah, thank you. And he's alive. He survived. He's
Good.
in the other room. But I mentioned that as just another layer of kind of just all the weight that I was carrying and
Yeah.
trying to run from.
Sounds like a very stressful period, and like you didn't have a lot of time in between, like you said. It was one thing to the next, and law school can be stressful. So that on
It
top
was,
of
yeah.
dealing with the if your brother, the family member, I can imagine this the pressure.
Yeah, it was a lot. I recognize it's kind of like with college, where the hardest part of law school wasn't the academics. It was definitely the most I've ever been challenged academically, but it was all the other stuff. It was the eating disorder that was still persisting in law school all 3 years. It was the unresolved trauma. It was other things that happened. And so I definitely learned that you can't achieve your way out of trauma. You can't run away from yourself as much as I tried to.
Sure.
And so, truly, after law school, that was like when I really could do a lot of inner work.
I see. That's when you had more time to dig deep, kind of break things down subconsciously.
Yeah, more so that things just kind of, I don't know what expression I'm searching for, but things just kind of collided where it's like, okay, now I really can't run it because now, okay, my education is done and now I'm really at a crossroads where what do I want my life to look at? Do I want to stay with the individual that I was with at the time? Do I want to live where I'm living and what career do I want? And so I really had to pause and reassess a lot of things. And mentally, mental health wise, I wasn't doing well. So, that was definitely the turning point. So I would say like November 2018.
I see. Okay. So that was when you were at the crossroads and you were like, something's got to change.
Yeah, definitely.
I see. And is then that's when you began digging deep, and then through your challenges, is that how you found your passion for helping others?
Yeah, definitely. So that's why I went to law school. I wanted to follow my father's footsteps. There was no question that I would go to grad school. There was no question that I would excel academically because that's how I was raised. And that goes back to being a first generation American where my parents sacrificed a lot. They went through a lot for us to have amazing opportunities. So there was never a question of, I'm going to not go to school. But once I completed that and I felt like, okay, I fulfilled that duty that I felt, now what? And so, yes, I love helping people. I've been the same person since I was a kid, the same values, the same core values of community, compassion, social justice. And I thought that becoming an attorney would be the way that I have that impact. But going to law school and learning the law and doing the different legal clinics and internships and whatnot, you kind of realize if it's for you or not. And I realized this is not my path. Many people effectuate change as an attorney, shout out to them, like the ACLU, but it wasn't my path. And so I had to explore, like, okay, so what is my path? Because I like to help people isn't a way that you pay bills and you
Yeah.
have to have some type of structure. And I definitely want to use my education in a meaningful way. And so, yeah, it was a lot of being curious, a lot of introspection, a lot of being okay with quote unquote failing out loud and not worrying about what other people think. It's okay if other people don't get it. I
Right.
know the type of life that I want and I'm not really surrounded by people that I want to emulate. So, respectfully, I'm not concerned with how you want to define my path. I know I'm the best person because that goes for everyone. We truly are the experts on our own experiences. So, we know what's best for us. And I
Yeah.
knew as much as, people looking from the outside, like, you went to top schools, you just graduated, like, why wouldn't you take the bar and just become an attorney? And I understand that, but you have to listen to your heart. And so it looked like me, working in the nonprofit world for a while, working at a law firm, ironically, in a non attorney role, and ultimately on social media. And I did different things like, writing op eds and kind of dabbling with sharing my voice.
Yeah.
And I really took the leap in two different ways. So in 2019, that was the first time I professionally spoke. And I did that on behalf of NAMI, so the National Alliance on Mental Illness. It's a very large
It's
grassroots
amazing.
organization. Yeah. And so I went to go speak at high schools, community centers, and I found that this is a calling. This is something that I know I'm meant to do because every time I would speak afterwards, people will come up to me and I saw that it was kind of like a key for them to unleash and open up.
Making a difference.
Yeah, and I was like, this is what I want because even in law school, my favorite part was when I got to speak to the clients. When I got to, for example, I did a domestic violence legal clinic, and my favorite part was speaking to the women and learning their stories and supporting them and cheering them on. It wasn't about the statues and the memos and the court dates. I could give an F. But when it came to respectfully, but when it came to just hearing her and seeing myself in her and being like, and wanting to like do more, but no, as an attorney, it's not here to, at least that's what the sense I internalize. It's like,
Yeah.
you're in a role. You're here to uphold the law. You're not here to be giving necessarily peer support, or at least only to a certain extent.
Yeah, there's
And
limits with being an
yeah,
attorney.
yeah, because we learn about ethics and we learn about professionalism and things like that. And so that speaking for NAMI really opened up my eyes, and then also social media. So I came across this advocate who she had in her bio that she's a certified trauma recovery coach. And I had never heard of that. With all of my experiences in rehab and the wilderness program, I always thought it was like a binary of either you're the medical provider or the patient. I didn't experience, that kind of like peer support where it's not someone diagnosing you or treating you. It's just someone who has walked a similar path that you can collaborate with on goals and you can check in with. And so I learned more about her program that she attended to get certified. And I ended up going for it and just getting certified. That same program, it's
Nice.
accredited through the ICF, and it was just like I want to say at least 4 months, maybe 6 months, the whole process that I did, and I felt like okay, this is aligning. This is allowing me to do exactly what I want to do, and not do what I don't want to do. And then things, always align the way that they're supposed to. So I was laid off on my birthday of 2022. And once that happened, I was like, okay, I'm about to go all in then on my company, my
Funny.
or my business. Yeah,
Funny how life does that. Life works for you, not against you.
exactly.
Absolutely. Wow. That's so amazing how you chose to listen to your heart and leave law school, even though you were so close. And you realized that it was more important that your heart was guiding you. And then as you followed your heart, everything began to unfold for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So then that led you into you working with your clients, setting up your business, and beginning to work with clients.
Yeah. So after I graduated law school, and I felt content with the degree, and I was like, okay, gotta go. Like this is, I'm good. And so that's when I went to the nonprofit world and the law firm. And once I was laid off, let's see, I was laid off June, and then I completed my LLC and everything official in November. And yeah, and then ever since then I've just been learning the ropes from hiring my own coaches, from mentors, from networking on how to run your own business, how to build your brand. And so, even the cycle breaker coach, that took time to kind of formulate because I wasn't sure, what type of coach, what do I want my niche to be? What do I want my audience to be? And so it's all been a process. And now recently I published my first book, and that was super exciting. So I'm really
Congratulations.
just, yeah, thank you. So I'm really just challenging myself pretty much day after day in some way to get out of my comfort zone and to keep out of that, keep outside of that comfort zone because it's very easy to go back.
Yes, it
And
is.
it hasn't been, ascending the whole time. Of course, I'm human, so it ebbs and flows the journey, but I'm dedicated to keep growing and
Good.
expanding.
It's a great mentality. And what is the name of your book?
Break the cycle before it breaks you.
I like that. Very catchy.
Yeah.
Powerful. So then,
Thank you.
with everything you shared, what would you say is your fundamental why, your driving force, aside from following your heart?
I would say inner children. So definitely my inner child. And in my book, I talk a lot about her. I actually talked about her earlier, not literally talked, but for those who are on Substack, it's a writing platform. And the little essay that I wrote today, I talked about her. So I'm always talking about her, and she's on the cover of my book. And not just my inner child, but the inner child of my parents and other people in my family. For those who may not be familiar with the concept, it's metaphorical. It's a way of pretty much giving yourself the opportunity to gift yourself what you needed as a child in the present. So let's say if you grew up in an abusive household as a child, then now you can, in a way, reparent yourself and gift yourself the kind and nurturing support that you needed. I see the adults in my life because everything I am is because of my elders, it's because of my ancestors, their sacrifices, their resilience. So, for example, my father is a refugee from Nicaragua, and when he and my grandmother and uncles fled, they didn't have group coaching or group therapy at all.
True. Yeah, they're on
So,
their own.
yeah, and so that, of course, affected their mindset and their decisions and things like that. And so I think of my dad's inner child. I think of that little boy. And so a lot of what I do is for him as well. It's sharing the stories that deserve to be told and for whatever reason weren't able to be told before. And so it's really important to me that I embody storytelling because there's a lot of healing in that. Representation saves lives. When there's someone that can see themselves in my story and see parallels, that's going to help them feel less alone and more likely to get support and resources.
I like that. Representation saves lives, and how when they can associate, relate to you, they, wow, that's powerful. I like that. So then, what would you say throughout your journey? I understand your why is not only for yourself, but for your family.
Mhm.
What would you say is the most powerful experience that shaped what you could believe? I mean, your belief in yourself, in what you could achieve, is what I was trying to say. What is the most powerful experience?
I would say going back to my brother's traumatic brain injury, that definitely profoundly shaped me as a person, but also my mindset because with Ivan, my brother, and this is a sensitive topic for those who may want to skip this part, but just speaking a bit more about his injury, it was catastrophic. He had an anoxic brain injury, so he was deprived of oxygen for a significant amount of time, and it only takes minutes for someone to die, from that. And
Yeah.
so we don't know, of course, the specifics because no one was there with him to tell us, but he was found unresponsive. And long story short, he was supposed to not make it past the first night, let alone the second night. And we were told by doctors to unplug the life support. Mhm. I remember everything. I remember the doctor, just everything, because that's just how trauma works. And one of the things that the doctor said was he has a 0% chance of recovery. And
100%.
0% chance of recovery. And you're only prolonging your agony by not taking him off life support.
That's terrible.
Yeah, he said a lot of things. And in retrospect, I can understand he truly thought that was the truth based on his medical expertise. But we, as a family, shout out my parents and our faith, decided no, like we're not going to give up on him. Literally, the world, and by the world, I mean the medical staff, are looking at us like we are super in denial, super like bananas, but we refused to give up on him. So it was a whole saga. We transferred him to another hospital. A lot of, things aligned in our favor by the grace of God, and we just didn't give up on him. And 6 months later, he emerged from his coma. And so every day that he didn't wake up, trust, people were looking at us like, it's not like, oh, okay, 5 more months he's going to wake up. He's not waking up. And
Six
you all
months.
look like
You won't.
But it is what it is. You know, we showed up every day. I would talk to him, sing to him, a lot of different things. And once he woke up against all odds, that was just the beginning of another journey where doctors would say, we don't know if he's going to be able to see, if he's going to be able to talk, walk, anything. There was none of the prognosis were good. They were all very, very, very pessimistic. But again, because of his attitude and because of his persistence, has made so much progress. He was able to finish his degree. Right now, he's not working because he had to have surgery, but he has a part-time job. He's volunteering at the hospital.
That's amazing. So he's back to
Yeah.
normal.
I wouldn't say normal. So it's complicated, so complicated because of the brain. And I learned so much about the brain unwillingly, I guess, because I truly learned the brain controls everything, your body temperature, your coordination, whether you have pain or not. It's remarkable. And so he is still working on his mobility. So he is a wheelchair user. He
Okay.
can walk. He's not paralyzed. And yeah, he has other challenges that come with the worst injury a human can have is an anoxic brain injury. And so he has shown me a lot that because ultimately doctors can say whatever, we can say whatever, but because Yvonne chose to not give up and he's still like, I'm going to walk, I want to be independent,
What an
I want to
inspiration.
do X, Y, Z. Yeah. So,
Miracle. And
yeah,
his attitude too. That's amazing.
exactly.
And over time too, he can continue. How the brain
Hmm.
regenerates, right? And
Exactly.
yeah, wow.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing that you all kept the faith for six
Yeah.
months and believed in him.
Yeah.
Wow.
Whew.
That
A
was
lot of trauma, but it was worth it because it's my brother.
yes, no, for sure. That was a great answer. This next question is a little fun. It's if you could turn your journey into a movie, what would the title be?
My first instinct is the book title, so maybe break the cycle before it breaks you. But if it's autobiographical, then probably something a bit more personal, probably something that alludes to like my inner child in some way. Maybe my childhood nickname, Coquita, or something like that. Yeah, or something a little bit more bold. But for now, I'll say that. Break the cycle before it breaks you.
That's a good, okay, that's a good title. And if you think of an alternative, let me know.
Okay.
If you can go back and give your younger self a piece of advice, let's say 10 years ago, 15 years ago, what would it be?
It would be to trust myself before others. So, one thing I talk about in my book is my superpower. One of them is self validation. And so, I didn't know that I could self validate. I always, for most of my life, would seek validation from other people in the sense of, like with my trauma, I would turn to other people, therapists or elders, and be like, was this traumatic? Am I allowed to feel this way? And so I would tell her, your feelings are valid. You were there. It happened to you. They weren't there. And so, and you are objective. You have great memory. Like, just trust yourself.
Trust
No
yourself.
one's better qualified to label something as traumatic or label something as joyous or whatever the case is than you, the person that was there. So definitely lean into self-validation.
That's true. It reminds me kind of how being a creative person and years ago, and I know you can relate to this, that's why I'm going to share this, but
Hmm.
society made you feel like you were kind of crazy if you weren't following the mold and going down a
Hmm.
conventional career path. And
Hmm.
even those close to you, your loved ones, they meant well, but they were the most, I don't want to say the worst influence, but the worst influence in the sense of telling you not to follow your heart and to go,
Hmm.
their perceived safe path for you, like, be
Yeah.
an attorney.
Hmm.
You need to be an
Hmm.
attorney. And
Hmm.
so for you to finally, not finally, but for you to recognize the importance of looking within and listening to
Yeah.
your own heart and being validated and knowing better and being like, it's me, like I know better than all these
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
That's a powerful transformation. That's a powerful paradigm shift.
Yeah, for sure. And I can relate to what you said. I've definitely had people closest to me, not out of, like you said, malice or anything other than love, but wanting, security, especially coming from their backgrounds. It's like you want to have something that's secure, but I also recognize I'm extremely privileged. I didn't have the same upbringing as my parents. I don't have the same life as a lot of the millions of children and people around the world that can't even go outside because there's warfare. I don't That's not my reality. And so I definitely give so much credit to my family, and I own the privilege that I have, and I use it as a resource where I can explore my passions. And I'm thankful for that because I'm a lot happier when I can just be myself.
That's good. No, it sounds like you have an amazing family, and a lot of people don't understand the immigrant experience. My dad is from Greece, and so my
Oh,
mom's
cool.
American, but I'm first generation here as well, and
Yeah.
it is a different mentality as
Yep.
opposed to having generational ties to a certain
Hmm.
place. And I can relate to that for sure. That's nice you have that appreciation for them.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot that I've talked about, but there's also a lot I probably won't ever talk about. I'm very protective of my family, but I will always give them credit for all the support, financial, emotional. So we work as a unit for sure.
That's a beautiful thing. What is your advice for those struggling with self-doubt or lack of motivation?
I would say two things. One would be being curious. So what patterns do you notice? If you really just kind of sit down one day and reflect, what type of situations do I feel most doubtful? Do I feel most out of control? And start from there. Explore, this critical voice, is it mine? Or did I internalize it from someone else? Did I grow up hearing this from parents or other elders, teachers, peers? And do you want to keep listening to it? Or do you want to amplify and develop and nurture that inner coach that can reframe those beliefs? Because our mindset truly is our world. So you can have like two people undergo the same incident and they could have vastly different outcomes solely because of their mindset, because of course there's other factors, but that mindset that they lean into is going to profoundly affect their trajectory. So if they are able to reframe it as opportunities, as lessons, versus internalize it as shame, as deficiencies, you're going to see studies show the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. A growth mindset is going to help you out every time. And so I would definitely say, one, be curious. Two, find your chosen family, or at least another way of saying community. So who you share DNA with or who you share classrooms with growing up, your world doesn't have to be contained to just your family, your neighbors, and your classmates. The world is massive. So you can find the support that you're looking for elsewhere. And sometimes it starts with just giving yourself permission to explore and see what type of communities are out there. So, like you and I, we connected through F45. And so I would have, I don't know how else we would have crossed paths unless you and I both at some point made a decision to join that community. And then that community opens up doors to other communities and all these different things. And so really just looking online or in person, what type of groups do you want to get support from? So I've also partnered with different organizations as a coach. So aside from my private practice, I also, even currently, I'm coaching on the Lifing app. Formerly, I coached at another app, but I'm not gonna give them any limelight. That's a whole story. I promise it's
A long story? Okay, fair
yeah,
enough.
yeah, yeah. I'm not even gonna get into that, but I chose to leave for a reason. And so, but I mention these different organizations because there are a lot of organizations and apps and different resources that weren't available 15, 20 years ago. And
Yes.
so it's really incredible what is out there where you can truly hop on a Zoom and connect with people that are different part of the world and but still can relate. You can relate being first gen with Greek roots. I can relate from Latin American roots. And we can just connect on that, even though we have very different identities and experiences. So it's really amazing when you find common ground with different people.
Yes, and the world is such a small place now with social media and online. So
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, with
Yes.
what would you say is a business or personal failure that taught you an invaluable lesson?
Personal or
Basically, anything that helped you learn, any kind of failure or crazy experience.
Lot. I think there's a lot. I would say that relationship that I alluded to earlier, that was definitely a turning point for myself. I would say that relationship was like a mirror, and that I don't like to say I attract things. I like to say I accepted things, and I accepted him because of where I was in my brokenness.
Settled in a
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, and in the sense of, you know, I saw a lot of myself in him. So on paper, I looked really good. Like, oh, da 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 da. But behind closed doors, I'm struggling with an eating disorder, just all over the place in different ways. He was similar in the sense that on paper, he looked like, oh, yeah, he's doing like amazing things. But I knew sides of him that most people didn't know. And so that whole relationship was really a mirror where I was like, whoa, this is why I accepted this, because I was also living some of that. And that was just a very unhealthy relationship on both sides. I take accountability for my role. I definitely wasn't, I was a lot. But anyway, you can read in my book. But yeah, so I would say that whole relationship was a lesson. I wouldn't even say it's a failure, but
Yeah,
I
you
would,
learn a lot.
yeah, it ultimately didn't survive. So if you want to frame that as a failure, we were going to get married, engaged, all that, but
No, no, if it wasn't meant to be, and
it
I
wasn't.
see that as a success because you had the courage to not just go along with it and take a
Yeah.
detour.
Yep.
So it's a success. And would you say that was more the like a lack of boundaries that you set, like tolerating more than you should in a sense?
Yeah. Definitely. I didn't know how to set boundaries. I didn't understand even like consent, for example. I didn't even have a true understanding of consent. I obviously knew. And I don't say that in the sense that I was out here violating people's boundaries, more of not even recognizing ways that my boundaries had been violated, because I didn't even understand, like, oh, I didn't know that wasn't okay, or I thought that was just what happened, and things like that. And so I definitely did not set and maintain healthy boundaries. And yeah, it was definitely my first love, my first real relationship. So a lot of hard lessons were learned. Wish him well, God bless. But I do believe that and I'm sure he's like, this is my version. So you got to talk to him for his version. But
Yeah, no, of
I
course
try
there's
to
two
be
sides.
objective. Yeah.
No, that makes sense though. It's interesting how relationships can mirror, like you said, mirror what you have going on.
Yeah.
It does seem like you attract a person that's in the similar stage of where you were at. And then
Yeah.
you either grow together or you grow apart or you stay in that comfort zone. And so yeah, it just seems like you definitely went separate directions, which is for the best.
Yeah, I went, and he had to accept that. But it was the hardest. It was really hard. It's really hard to leave someone that you're actually in love with and want this whole life with, but listening to that inner voice again that's saying, this isn't
Yeah.
it. And it was really hard for sure.
That's I've always done that as well, following my heart and it's hard to explain to people, so I'm glad you relate. How would
Hmm.
you explain knowing the difference between a decision that is, your heart is guiding you towards, like it seems like the path of least resistance, right? Like not only
Hmm.
that, but also there's just a feeling of alignment that you get excited about. Is that how would you explain it?
Yeah. I saw some article, I still need to read it, but somewhere along the lines where scientists were researching, that gut feeling. Like, is that real? And how, and from what I gathered briefly, that it is real. And so I do know that 95% of our decisions are driven by our subconscious mind. And so literally, like, we are making so many decisions on based off reasons that we may not even be fully aware of, but our body is soaking it in, our mind is soaking it in. And so maybe that intuition, that hunch, that gut feeling, spidey senses, whatever you want to
Makes
call
sense.
it. Yeah, I don't think I truly think, and I believe that somewhere out there, there's research that supports that it's very much real. And so it's coming from somewhere. We may not fully understand presently, but I think the mind, like we were talking about, is so incredible that that voice. if I had to really just sit with that, I would say my body was really just looking at all the data from the last 2.5 years that I was with that individual and was like, okay, based on all this data, all the times, all the fights, or et cetera, you gotta go. And so I feel like
You gotta
my,
go.
yeah, it wasn't random. It might have felt like a bit, out of nowhere, but
Yeah,
it truly wasn't random.
it's a build up.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got a an amazing book for you. It is called Into the Magic Shop. I forgot the author. It's my favorite book, and
Okay.
it doesn't have anything to do with magic. I don't like magic. It's about how a neurosurgeon, his account, his story, but how he finds the heart sends more signals to the brain than the brain does to the heart. And it is by, let's see, Into the Magic Shop. Into the Magic. Here it is, by James R. Doty. The best book. It's so good, so good.
Okay, I gotta check it out.
Definitely. Let me know what you think for sure. I have a couple of questions left for you. First of all, actually, here's a fun one I'm going to throw in addition to those. If your community had a mascot, what would it be and why?
I kind of want to say I really love dogs. And I really love little dogs with big attitudes. I think I identify
No,
with them.
like Chihuahuas.
Chihuahuas, what are they? Yorkies, like dachshunds, that just like these little dogs that do the most. I love them. Shih Tzus. And so, and apart from just, I think they're adorable, the reason I would choose them is because if you see like those videos of like a little Chihuahua that intimidates a bear or like a
Oh
German
yeah,
Shepherd. Yeah, and
I've
you're
seen
like,
those.
I like that because it really shows the power of the mind, the power of confidence, the power of your mindset. If you believe you're big and bad, people will will see that and perceive that. And so I think I learned a lot of life lessons from feisty chihuahuas.
That's a funny one. Yeah, no, I've never heard that one before, but I can see what you're saying though. There's a lot of symbolism there. The what was I gonna say? Yeah, what is the best piece of advice you ever received from a mentor?
From a mentor. The first one that came to mind like instantly was my father. And he's definitely been like my biggest mentor. Him and my mom are my biggest mentors of life. And so I remember with Yvonne's injury, I was contemplating taking a leave of absence from school because I was in school. It happened my junior year. And I was like, nah, I gotta, maybe it's best that I stop going to school for a while so I can be at his bedside. And one of the things my dad said was, the world is never gonna stop for you when something happens. And that really stuck with me because it's true. Like, the world is never going to stop. The trees are still going to grow, the birds are still going to fly. It's still going to be, the same holiday season and everything. Like, the world doesn't stop, and maybe I don't have to stop either. And so that just really stuck with me because it kind of gave me permission to really just be autonomous and think, okay, should I do maybe what other people think, or what might make the most sense, or what is it that I truly want to do. And I love school. Like, I always love to learn. I'm a nerd, so I didn't want to stop going to school. I always wanted to graduate, on time. And so I was like, yeah, you're right. The world doesn't stop, and I shouldn't have to stop either. I can keep moving, I can adjust. In
It's beautiful.
retrospect, boundaries. And, as we discussed, I took it a little too far, but that has just always stuck with me. Like, people are gonna people, life is gonna life. Like, you have to
Yeah.
decide how you want to move.
No, I love that because I don't want to say gave permission, but he reminded you to give permission to yourself to not feel guilty for living your life, despite circumstances, hard times, good times. That's powerful. That's really powerful. Wow. Last two questions is what is the legacy you would like to leave behind?
I would say what I'm doing now, promoting cycle breaking and promoting authenticity, community, and just being known as someone who's really honest and authentic. Yeah, because I'm very clear when I speak that I'm a work in progress. I'm not someone who's like healed and anything like that. I'm healing and I'm becoming. And so someone that was willing to just be herself and invite others along with her on that journey.
And that's a special place to be where you're just doing your purpose, working
Yeah.
towards your purpose and being true to yourself, not stuck in a career that's not right for you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a special place. And it took a lot of hard work to get there.
It did, for
Yeah.
sure.
Last question for now is how are you going to continue excelling beyond boundaries as you are?
Selling beyond boundaries, I think just not stopping the momentum. So, and it's, I'm someone who likes to nap a lot. So I'm not trying to paint this picture like I'm like super like all over the place. Like, nah, I'm really not. I am someone who has learned to embrace rest, self care, because boundaries isn't only with other people, it's with yourself. And so I really had to learn self imposed boundaries. And I want to keep working on that. I want to keep working on that, giving myself structure, like that reparenting component, and continue to learn, always remain open minded, being coachable, being open to feedback, being open to other people. I've learned a lot. Even just from moving to Florida, I've learned a lot and have been around people that I hadn't been before and just being curious. Yeah. Just remain curious, remain authentic, and remain open minded.
I like it. So then where can everyone find you? On Instagram, Cycle Breaker Coach?
Yes, Cycle Breaker Coach on Instagram, on Threads, on LinkedIn, and on Substack and Facebook.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Priscilla. That concludes episode 37, but I really appreciate you sharing your story.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.